Good evening, everyone. Welcome to On the Ball with Zach and Daniel, where if there's a ball in the sport, we're probably going to cover it. Guys, we hope you're having a wonderful evening. I'm going to pass it to Zach because last episode I said he could get all the glory and all the thunder. So, Zach, we're passing it to you.
Yeah, back at it for, what are we on now? Episode 6?
This is 6. Yep, 6.
Wow. Flying by. We're having a lot of fun doing this. Appreciate the content and engagement. We had some good engagement last week. We had some comments in chat that we were able to answer actually on the spot. So if you guys are jumping in here, we can do the same. But otherwise, episode 6, we'll kind of touch on mostly NFL today, but a little bit of basketball since we're all wrapped up there.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and start with the NBA. We've got our champion. We said game 6 is what we kind of said we were thinking we would shoot for, where we thought we would hit. Can't remember if they came back and won one more. I need to actually look at that. I, for some reason, am just blind at the moment.
They did. Yeah.
Okay.
It was a game 6 closeout.
Yeah, so game 6, as we called it, I mean, it came down right to where it was. And again, I think we were dead on with LeBron James being the difference maker. I mean, I think, although I don't know if I'd give him the finals MVP. I mean, he had 28 points in the last game, but at the same time,
it was unanimous. So
I guess if you're considered the best player of your generation, you're going to get the finals MVP.
I mean, AD, he kind of went MIA, to be honest, for like 2 games there. It was like game 3 and game 4. He barely, I think he hit a 3 at the end of the game to give him 22 in game 4, and he was under.
He was at 19.
Points?
He was at 19. Game 6, yeah.
I was going to mention game 6, but I think game 3 he had like 11 points or maybe 15, somewhere in that range. And then game 6 he was still held under 20.
Yeah.
So from an offensive standpoint and like most valuable player standpoint, I think it definitely goes to LeBron. AD though, and in game 6, that closeout game, the Lakers defense was just absolutely unstoppable. I mean, I think I looked at the score. It was like 30-something points in the third quarter. Might be off on that. Before halftime. Anyway,
before halftime, they allowed 36 points. Yeah.
Yeah. Before halftime.
Yeah.
Like under 40 points. And that defense was just suffocating. And it was really over by the middle of the second quarter.
No one should really be surprised by that, though. I mean, those that know Frank Vogel, like, think back to those Pacer teams, like, awesome defenses, constantly awesome defenses. So, I mean, no one should be really all that surprised that they played good defense. I think my biggest, not necessarily standout, but the guy that, again, as we talked about, I believe we talked about it 2 episodes ago with Goran Dragic. I mean, guy played 19 minutes in game 6. Only scored 5 points, but had 5 rebounds and 2 assists on that messed up ankle. I mean, he's going to be he's going to be indebted to Miami for the rest of however long he wants to be there. Because, I mean, he didn't carry him to the win, obviously, but, I mean, that's some pretty serious.
He did what he could, and it was more than probably a lot of people could have done. So
it's more than Kyrie would have done.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he, series maybe that series gets pushed to 7 if the Heat are healthy there, but Lakers the better team. Frank Vogel loves those two-way guys. KCP came up huge.
Rondo had 19.
Good offense, great defense. Rondo had a big game. Yeah, when you got the 2 best players and you get 1, let alone 2 role players to step up and get you 12 to 20 points each.
Oh, they had 3 in that game 6 with Danny Green. So, I mean, Danny Green had 11, so I don't know. It's gonna be interesting. I did come across the wire earlier today that Anthony Davis is gonna opt out and re-sign with the Lakers. So we did talk about that. I think on episode 2, we talked about him potentially going to Chicago or Miami or one of those two places. So, and it will be really interesting. I've seen a lot of talk about Giannis heading to the Heat.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting.
Offseason. What do the Lakers do? Do they retool? They've got a lot of unrestricted free agents: Dwight Howard, KCP, Avery Bradley, I think JaVale McGee,
Kuzma,
Marcus or Markieff Morris, one of those.
It's Markieff.
Whichever Morris.
It's Markieff.
They have Kuzma locked down for another year on his, I believe, his rookie contract. But do they maybe try and retool? He doesn't really fit in that offense. Do they maybe try and package him with the 15 or 20 million of Danny Green's contract and go out and get someone
maybe
like Victor Oladipo making 21 mil?
No, not from the Pacers. They don't.
They could.
They better be adding. Buddy
Hield's another name.
Buddy Hield might be good. I wouldn't mind Buddy Hield on the Pacers, honestly. But if they're gonna trade us for Victor, they better be adding a draft pick if we're taking that much sour cap.
They do. They've got the 28th overall pick, first round, so they could package that with Danny Green and Kyle Kuzma. Kyle Kuzma averaged 18.7 points last year, the year before the COVID season when LeBron was out. No AD, so he can be like a 1A 1B scorer for a team.
The only problem
he's in the right spot.
The only problem is I don't see where he fits in with the Pacers on that analysis, because we've got Miles Turner, and we've also got Dom Sabonis. So I mean those are our two. That's our 4 and our 5 right there. Really, 2 centers playing the 4 and the 5. So I don't know where that goes.
Rumblings though, weren't there a couple rumblings of Victor Oladipo?
Yeah, there was some rumblings
not
from
being quite so happy.
There were some rumblings, but I think there was an article 2 weeks ago. I think maybe it was last week that was talking about how he's happy in Indianapolis and he wants to stay. Okay. So, I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, we're not getting a new front office, but we're getting a new head coach, and Pacers should know their new head coach next week. They're doing another round of interviews, and actually Chris Ballard is in on those conversations, the Colts GM. And it's kind of like, what does the Colts GM know about basketball? But I guess you're looking for a good quality person and someone who's done that coaching search before. Maybe they're looking for someone who can connect with the players the way Frank Reich does. I don't know. It's interesting. But I read an article that said that he was in on those conversations too. Wonder if they're paying some of his salary then to help Jimmy Irsay out. But who knows? It'll be interesting. We'll have to start talking about free agents and draft at some point coming up here. Yeah. But yeah, so Lakers obviously winning in 6. Memory for Kobe. Very special moment for LA. I don't know if you saw any coverage, but just the murals that have been made, the images that were made of like Kobe and Gianna as angels behind LeBron looking at the NBA championship trophy, and some pretty cool imagery, honestly. And maybe
that's a special season.
Maybe when I put this up on YouTube, I'll put some of that imagery, lay it over our video just to kind of show some of it. Really cool. I'm not a Lakers fan. I don't really like LeBron as a basketball player. Would be happy if he was on my team, but he's not. It's my feelings for Tom Brady. So, but happy for them, especially with Kobe going out. So
yeah.
So we're not going to talk about MLB this week, guys. We'll talk about that as kind of a World Series preview. It's the best I think we can kind of call it next week, because we think that we'll be closer to the World Series, knowing who's going to be playing in the World Series. So we won't do an update this week on that. We'll go ahead and move over to the NFL and kind of talk about that. So, Zach, I thought the first thing that we could kind of talk about and I thought that this would be kind of interesting too. We're actually, I don't know, we're a week early, I think, for it, but we'll really be like 4 weeks early for it. I was thinking we could do kind of a talk on where we think the team standings are and kind of talking about those conferences. And I know I didn't tell you this before we started, probably should have, but I think it would be interesting in 4 weeks for us to, after there's been 8 weeks of games, that we kind of talk about where people are and if we're kind of still on pace with what we thought was going to happen. Yeah. So I thought real quick it'd be interesting just to touch base. And I'll give you a second to get those up, but to kind of touch base where people are, things that stick out to us that we're surprised about. Just from the standings, not necessarily from games that we played, and we'll get into the games that were played this past week. But to kind of talk about those standings, and we can just go conference by conference if you want. I think if we're starting there talking about the AFC, I'm not really surprised by the AFC, honestly. AFC East, sorry, the AFC East with the Bills, the Patriots, Dolphins, and Jets. I'm not really surprised by that. I think it sucks that Cam missed that one game. Or has he missed two? Yeah, he's missed two. It sucks that he's missed those two games because I think it would have maybe been interesting to see the Bills and the Patriots both at 4-0.
Yeah, Bills are 4-1 now. They got demolished right by Tennessee.
That's right.
Yeah.
So my numbers are a little outdated.
Yeah.
But I don't know why that is.
I mean, I think they're still going to be fighting for the top of that division here at the end. The one that really stands out to me, though, if you look down at the AFC North, Pittsburgh 4-0, Baltimore 4-1, Cleveland 4-1.
Yeah.
Gosh, what a tough division. I mean, that division's always kind of been tough. Pittsburgh and Baltimore there, but the Browns 4-1.
Yeah, I mean, I think they caught us all by surprise. I mean, at this point, I think both you and I said, we didn't have our hopes up very high for the Cleveland Browns.
I did, other than I did preseason, but other than week one, I've rescinded my text message to you.
Yeah. Well, Madden may get it right. They said they were going to win the whole thing, and be really interesting if Madden gets it right. But I don't know, man. Watching that game with the Colts, I think Cleveland found a way to win in that game. I don't necessarily. They played a good game. I don't give them anything, like nothing on them. They played a good game. But I think the Colts, in a sense, threw that game away against them. I think we had plenty of opportunities to win that game, and we didn't because Phillip Rivers just didn't pass the ball. The way that he forced the ball into double coverage, and it was bad decision-making by not only Phillip Rivers but also by our coaches. Frank Reich was talking about how that safety that the Colts had against them, it was a bad play call by him. So, some mental mistakes by the Colts coaching staff and players, if we get some of those away, you're maybe looking at a 4-1 Colts and a 3-2 Cleveland. But give it to them. I mean, they're playing really well. They beat the Cowboys. They beat they beat the Cowboys. They beat who else? They beat
Indy. Obviously.
Beat Indy. Yeah, they beat the Cowboys. They beat Indy. But the other two games after that, they barely beat Cincinnati and they barely beat Washington. And, I don't know. It'll be interesting.
The Indy game it stands out to me because, Indy has such a good defense. And then Cleveland, putting up the point total that they did on them. And then did see PFF has the Browns actually as the number 3 rated offense right now. So they're moving the football. It's an offensive league. You got to put up points, and they're doing that. So
the total yard, they almost had 400 yards total. You know, they had a relatively good game. You got to give it to them. I give Cleveland all the credit. They had a really good game. You know, they played well, and you know, good on them. Hope they can continue to play well. They got a tough game at Pittsburgh this week.
Yeah, that'll be a good one.
You know, that'll be difficult for them. They got a pretty hefty schedule. You know, Bengals the week after that, the Raiders the week after that. Then they got their bye. And then they honestly have some pretty easy games potentially with Houston, Eagles, Jaguars, Titans. And then they come into a stretch where they play the Ravens. They have 2 snoozer games with the Giants and Jets. Then they finish the season out against the Steelers. So, I mean, you very well could see the Cleveland Browns in the playoffs. But you could also not see the Cleveland Browns in the playoffs. If they make the playoffs, they may be a wild card. You know, we're talking, you know, there's 4 teams in their division that are 4-1 or 4-0. I mean, that's pretty big. So,
yeah.
It'll be interesting to see. I think another standout for me is really the Raiders. You had the Raiders fairly high on your list at the beginning of this year, and I just didn't. You know, they've surprised me. Honestly, they've surprised me. They have played incredibly well. They beat the Chiefs at Kansas City. That's a big win. They barely lost to Buffalo. They barely lost to the Patriots. And they beat the Saints, who weren't healthy at the time. You know, they didn't have Michael Thomas. So this week they're rolling into their bye week. They don't play this week, but then they have to play Tampa Bay, Cleveland, the Chargers, Broncos. Then they have to play the Chiefs, Falcons, Jets, Colts. You know, who knows what the Falcons are going to be, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, the
I don't
Raiders,
know, they surprised me.
They've got the offense. They've got weapons on offense. Darren Waller, tight end. I think it's Henry Ruggs and Hunter Renfrow. A couple pretty good receivers, and Josh Jacobs is probably one of the top 7 running backs in football right now. You know, so they got their bell cow in the back, and Derek Carr's having one of his better seasons. So the Raiders are going to push probably for a playoff spot. They're going to be up there. Some interesting, definitely only what, I guess we're 5 games through, right? A couple teams here have already had their buys.
Yeah,
had
5.
A COVID bye.
Yeah, we're 5. This will be week 6.
Yeah. So, you know, there's some interesting standings in the AFC. You know, Patriots, Raiders, Colts, Cleveland. You know, Miami had a big win over the 49ers. You know, could they fight for a playoff spot? You know, does Houston turn things around?
No, Miami will not.
I mean, they're surprising people. They've got, I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick is lighting up the scoreboard. Myles Gaskin is kind of coming out as their lead back there. So, and they get a beat up on the Jets. So they're going to get another. I don't know if they've already played the Jets, but they're going to get at least 1, if not 2, free wins in there somewhere. Yeah. So
it'll be interesting to see kind of where Miami falls. Where I mean, because we've seen this with Fitzpatrick before, right? Like he's played incredibly well, and then all of a sudden he's just dropped off. So you know, I guess in a sense we're kind of waiting for when is that drop off going to happen, from that standpoint. But you're right, they are going to get to play against the Jets. We'll see how the Jets come back. You know, they just got rid of their best running back, arguably their best running back. They still have Frank Gore, but you know, Frank Gore's like 52 years old. So, you know, who knows? I'm not sure if Adam Vinatieri or him are the oldest player in the league. I mean,
yeah, that's a good question.
It's and Adam's not even in the league right now. So, but jumping up to the NFC, I think our big surprise, the biggest surprise that I have right now, is really, other than the NFC East, is the whole NFC East is San Francisco. I did not expect. I mean, they've had a lot of injuries,
tons of injuries,
but I did not expect them going into this week. I expected them to be at least 3 wins, maybe 4 wins. You're looking right now at a team, you know, I thought they were going to beat the Cardinals. They didn't. I thought that they'd beat the Jets, which they did. They beat the Giants. I thought they'd beat Philadelphia, and I definitely thought that they'd beat Miami. So you're looking right there at worst 3-2, at best probably 4-1 team.
Mm-hmm.
I expected this NFC East to look a lot like the AFC North, honestly.
The NFC East?
I'm sorry, the NFC West.
The NFC West.
The NFC West to look a lot like the AFC North, honestly. I mean,
here's one little thing though is, you know, you do have 3 teams with 4 wins in that AFC North, but you come down to the NFC West. They're the only division in football right now to every single team, all 4 teams have a positive point differential. The 49ers are at +10. So it's still a strong division. The 49ers, even with that 43 to what was it, 16 loss?
17, I think it was 17. Yeah, 17.
Even with that loss, they're still at +10. They've been demolished by injuries. You know, they could just be one of those teams that are a couple games under 500 at the halfway point, but go, you know, 6-2 to finish out the season or something.
I mean, I think all 4 of these teams, I know I didn't predict Arizona to be, I predicted them to be last, and that's really only because of Kyler Murray and it just being his second year. I think eventually they'll be that, you know, probably second in the division behind the Seahawks as long as Russell Wilson is playing the game. But, you know, I honestly could have seen, I wouldn't have been surprised if you told me that any team in the NFC West was going to make the playoffs. Or all 4, or if you told me that all 4 of these teams were going to make the playoffs, I wouldn't be surprised.
Is that possible?
I don't know if it's possible, but I mean, I assume it's possible. They could all
we have
go.
2 wildcard teams now? How does it work?
There are 2 wildcard teams. There are 2 wildcard teams.
So you only have 3 max. You get the division winner plus the 2 wildcards potentially.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so 3 teams coming from the and we still may very well see that. You know, so surprising from that standpoint for me it was the 49ers in the NFC. I mean, that's
the one for me, and if we can kind of jump over to the score lines here too. The one for me was that Monday night game with the Saints. And I know they won. I know, you know, they got the one in the W column, but both of us had the Saints, I think, in the NFC Championship.
I think I had them in the Super Bowl, honestly.
I think you had Tampa.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I had Tampa in the Super Bowl.
We both had them in the NFC Championship, and
I can pull it up.
They really should have lost this game to the Chargers. The Chargers completely blew this game. I think a 17-point lead, and basically started playing, you know, like they had, I don't know, who's a really bad quarterback, and just started throwing the ball underneath, running the ball. Didn't really get any yardage, didn't really stay on the attack, and the Saints kind of crept back into this game and ended up winning it, obviously. Yeah. But Drew Brees, I know he doesn't have Michael Thomas yet. They're on their bye week. You know, maybe they fix some things, but Drew Brees has not looked very good, and the Saints have not looked all that great, even though they're 3-2. It still speaks to their talent, but I'm a little worried. If I'm a Saints fan, I'm a little worried. You know, you got Tampa in that division. The Panthers are 3-2 as well, so might be tough looking at it right now for the Saints to keep that divisional top spot in that division.
Yeah, I think so. Drew Brees has signed a 2-year contract 3 days ago. So he signed the contract 3 days ago, but he's signed a $50 million contract in March 16th of 2020. Had a base salary of $2 million this season, and that jumps to $25 million next season, which is crazy to think that he only is getting paid $2 million this year. But he has a signing bonus of $23 million this year, apparently. So they just basically upfronted him the signing bonus for this year, and probably that was to do something with his contract in the sense of helping them kind of pay for players in a sense.
Yeah. Cap
flexibility. But I mean, if you look at kind of where he is already this season, I mean, his passer rating in 2020 is 71. He has a 71.3% completion rating for 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and 108.2 quarterback rating. 2 years ago, when he played the full season, or let's go back to 2016. 2016 was the year that he threw for 5,200 yards. He had a 70% completion rating, 37 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, and a 101.7 rating. I definitely think Drew Brees is in decline. How much decline, I'm not sure about.
Yeah.
And that's my thing. I think you take the best weapon away from any quarterback, they're going to struggle a little bit. I mean, we saw that with Peyton was about the only one. Peyton and Brady were about the only ones we've seen.
But it's watching the Saints, though. It's not so much of like not having the personnel around him. It's the offense, the way the offense is run, and then the way that Drew Brees is like physically throwing the football. I mean, there's people tweeting every time he throws a pass over 15 yards. There's people tweeting that it's looking like, Peyton Manning when he was in his last season.
Yeah.
And throwing, I mean, literally, like, it looks like a balloon. It just like kind of floats.
Yeah.
And floats and floats. And it doesn't have that nice arc or that nice speed to it on those passes that are 20, 25 yards downfield.
Yeah.
So I think from a physical standpoint, he's in decline. He's still got weapons, and I know that passer rating was actually higher than that 5,000 yard season, but I don't think that passer rating is kind of an imperfect stat. I wish I could pull up, like PFF or whatnot here, but just the eye test, I guess, really. It's the eye test, what it comes down to.
Yeah. See if I can pull up PFF real quick.
Yeah.
Oh,
they usually put their QB rankings behind a paywall.
Yeah, what it has, ranking all 30 ahead of the season. So ahead of the season, they had him ranked at number 4. Whether or not that's yeah. They said despite late season slip in play in each of the past 2 years, Drew Brees is the highest PFF grade of any quarterback over that time, 94.4. His big time throwing rate has declined with his arm strength, but he remains one of the safest quarterbacks with the ball in his hand and has the lowest turnover worthy play rate over that time.
Yeah.
Brees remains one of the most accurate passers in football, leading all quarterbacks with a 68.6 accuracy rating since the start of the 2018 season.
That's the big one. I've seen those stats of Drew Brees' accuracy and videos of him throwing footballs through tires, 20 yards down the field.
Trash cans.
Into trash cans. And there were multiple passes, and the Monday Night Football commentators commented on it. Just the little things where you might have a guy on a slant coming across the middle of the field, and instead of that pass leading him and letting him continue to run with that ball, it's behind him, right?
Yeah.
So that receiver has to turn around.
Yeah.
It's those little things, and there were a solid like 5 passes in like a 2 to 3 drive span where it just wasn't quite on point. And then you see him combine that with the throws downfield, and that just kind of look like they're floating. You get a little worried, but he's still a very, very good quarterback. He's got a lot of skill. But I think the decline is there. I think it's among us.
I think that kind of goes into why Michael Thomas is so important for that offense. Because if you look at the routes that Michael Thomas runs, they're usually quick slants. They're just getting the ball in his hands and he's making the play. So losing that dynamic of a player, that's a big thing. So, I think we could talk about the Saints the whole freaking night, but moving moving kind of forward. I don't know what Dallas does. I don't know what the NFC East does at this point. I mean, they lost Dak Prescott. I mean, the question in the back of my head is, and I know this is a question that a lot of people have been asking, is, guy didn't have a long-term contract. Is this going to be Dallas's, shipping out? Like, we're going to get rid of this person. Just like completely get rid of him. I doubt that. I think that they've come out and said that he's the quarterback of their future. No. I know I saw a couple of articles that said something about Dak Prescott, perfect fit for the Colts and the Bears next season. I doubt they get rid of him, but, it begs the question. Andy Dalton has a great year. Do they think about pulling what happened to Marcus Mariota? And I know putting Dak Prescott and Marcus Mariota in the same category is foolish, but they got rid of Marcus Mariota for Ryan Tannehill because he played well. If Jerry Jones doesn't want to pay Dak $40 million a year, does he look at Andy Dalton if he plays well and says, "Hey, this is as good as anything we've got at the moment"? I don't know.
I think I could see a slim chance of a scenario like that happening if maybe it wasn't the Dallas Cowboys, because they can pay Dak Prescott. If we were talking about the Tennessee Titans, for instance, yes, I could see that happening. But Dak Prescott, I mean, he threw for close to 3 games in a row with almost 500 yards. I think one game over 500.
Yeah.
A couple 450s. I mean, he looked like an emerging almost MVP candidate this year if the Cowboys were to kind of turn their record around. So I think he is that skillful franchise quarterback that the Cowboys were kind of waiting and still seeing if he was that guy. I think they're going to re-sign him. I think they're going to pay him.
I think they will too.
If we were talking about the Browns or the Jaguars or the Bengals, Tennessee Titans, maybe that replacement comes in and has a really good season and they go kind of with the budget option. But I don't think the Cowboys are about budget options.
Do you think he's worth $40 million a year? I mean, because that's the question. I personally don't think he's worth $40 million a year. But I don't think there's any player worth $40 million a year. I wouldn't pay $40 million a year for Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Patrick Mahomes. But
yeah, what is Mahomes? He's 10-year, 500.
Yeah, I think he's making $50 million a year.
Yeah,
which is crazy.
I mean, it might be an overpay, but you need a quarterback in this league, and Dak Prescott is in the top 6 to 8. And I think you got to lock that down when you have the chance. So,
and you're not a doctor or anything, but coming from a athletic training background, maybe you can answer this. With the type of injury he had, have you seen anything, I know there was a concern with Richard Sherman about him coming back from the Achilles, and I know the Achilles is completely different than what has happened to Dak, but is there any concern about his return to form in a sense?
I think an ankle at the quarterback position is definitely less of a concern. You could argue, he has some running capability, so maybe that doesn't come back immediately.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly know what kind of break it was. It was, if you saw the video.
I did not see the video. I do
Warning,
not want to see the
warning if
video.
you are now interested in looking it up, but warning. His ankle actually, you typically think of your ankle rolling outward.
Yeah.
And kind of the bottom of your foot showing to the inside.
Mm-hmm.
His ankle actually broke the opposite direction. So that's a more uncommon break than it is normal. I didn't look into what kind of break it was, or it was, I mean, I'm sure it was dislocated.
It was through the skin too, which creates
so
infection issue. Yeah, it creates infection.
That's the worst break you can have. So compound fracture. Actually, I'm looking at, compound fracture and dislocation. So that bone, that's about as bad as it gets, but I think he's going to come back. I saw like a 6-week kind of time frame. He's going to be ready for training camp and good to go for next year. So it's just unfortunate.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Let's see. I had one off the top of my head. Oh, I guess the biggest one before we move on, there's one other thing I want to talk about before we talk about last week's game, but gotta love the fact he didn't play well, but gotta love the fact that Alex Smith stepped onto the field and he got sacked 6 times because the Washington offense sucks. But you got to love the fact that he came back on the field after that injury he had 2 seasons ago and all that he's gone through. If you've not watched the NFL 60, I think it's NFL 60 video of his, highly recommend. It is what that guy went through, what he did to train to come back is incredible. Is an incredible story, and his wife and him are they just appear to be lovely people, and the faithfulness that she has during that time as well to him, and like the motivation that she is just, it truly is a fantastic story. To see him take the field was really a great moment for me, at least. So
you'd love to see it. Hopefully he gets some more opportunity this year. It's certainly possible with that Washington QB situation. So it'd be good to see him out there more.
And hopefully he just doesn't get hurt. I mean, that's also the big thing. But so before we talk about last week's games, let's talk real quick about COVID-19 in the NFL, because we have 2 more teams that have been added to that list of shutting down, Panthers and Falcons. Both
really
are
Panthers
in extreme.
As well?
Yep.
Didn't see that one.
Panthers were put in. Let's see here. Atlanta's most recent opponent, the Carolina Panthers, entered the intensive protocol earlier Wednesday because of Davidson's placement on the list. So, really, really interesting, honestly, what we're going on. And it also kind of goes to the, I don't know if you saw this, and this is kind of college football, but Nick Saban diagnosed with COVID-19 as well. So, we're seeing
Florida Gators had like 20 something.
Yeah, tests. it's coming in, and so it'll be really interesting to see kind of how you and I kind of talked about it a little bit. Are they potentially going to add more weeks to the NFL season because of that? And I don't know.
I just don't see how you can keep shuffling and not have these kind of like secondary and tertiary effects run into just a roadblock, really. We ran into one with the Bills. The Bills and the Chiefs were actually supposed to play tonight. Tonight's Thursday, the 15th. Since the Bills played Tuesday, they had to move the Bills Chiefs to Monday. I just don't see if we keep having these teams that you have to be pushed and then rescheduled.
Yeah,
there's there's got to be one where it doesn't work without just giving them an extra week in the season to make up a game. I kind of see that as maybe where this is headed, but
what are your thoughts?
Yeah.
So going on top of that, what are your thoughts on I don't know if you saw this article, but I did. They're contemplating using Dallas. I believe it's Dallas and Las Vegas as bubbles for the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah,
I'm a little pissed because Indianapolis could easily handle the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
MLB's doing the same thing, and so far, no positive tests. I think we touched on it at one point with the MLB, but limiting travel is really one of the best things you can do. The issue is, with the MLB, they're still putting them up in, the Hilton in San Diego or LA, right?
Yeah.
And you got, people still traveling there for potentially business, potentially vacation. So you're still getting in the same elevator, the same stairwells as these public people with you. So it's not a true bubble like the NBA did, but I suppose it's better than having them fly to Pittsburgh, stay in a Pittsburgh hotel, fly back to the home team state, mingle with their families, fly to they win the game, fly to Baltimore, and then play stay in a Baltimore hotel. So I guess it's better in that sense, but it's still not a true bubble. So
I mean, Indianapolis could do it. I think they should reconsider the LA. I would hate to have them both on the West Coast, personally. I think that does a disservice. Dallas, I know, is not necessarily West Coast, but it's more West than most teams are. So pick something in the middle that makes more sense. For me, makes sense. But Indianapolis could surely hold it. I hope they'll think about that when the time comes. By the way, guys, if you're enjoying this, go ahead and drop a follow. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them in the chat. We'd love to answer your questions. We're running at about 47 minutes at the moment, which perfectly happy with. I think we're obviously not close to being done yet, but if you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat, and we'd love to answer those questions. If we can. If we can't, then we'll find them and potentially answer them next week. So, with that being said, let's talk about Week 5 games.
We touched on the Saints there a little bit, but
we touched on Dallas a little bit.
What scores kind of jumped out to you?
Overall, not really, in my opinion, not really a great week of NFL football, honestly. I think you had some relatively good games like the Raiders and Chiefs. It'll be interesting. I guess I'll start there. It'll be interesting to see kind of what the Chiefs do moving forward. Rumor has it they've signed Le'Veon Bell, who was just, cut from the
Jets.
From the Jets, and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I can never say his last name. Helaire. He's not been as solid since his week 1 breakout. So I mean, the question becomes, how do they intertwine Le'Veon Bell into that offense, and make him another weapon? I hate that they gave Patrick Mahomes another weapon. It seems like the guy doesn't. The only person that has more weapons than him is Tom Brady.
The one thing though is Le'Veon Bell. I know he didn't play in 2018. He had that holdout year, but he, among qualified running backs, and I forget how many carries they used for that qualification, but among qualified running backs from 2017, so essentially Le'Veon Bell's 2017 and 2019 season, he has the lowest yards per carry. I believe it was 3.6, which doesn't really cut it as an NFL running back. 3.6 yards per carry over his last basically 30 games. So I know he's 28. He's not at that kind of scary 30 mark for NFL running backs quite yet, but I also don't think he's the guy from the 2015 Pittsburgh teams as well. I think he mixes in nicely with that backfield, catches some balls. Maybe he takes 8 to 12 carries away from Hilaire, but
I think
that offense is still going to run through Patrick Mahomes.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's where he's dangerous. Where Le'Veon Bell is dangerous is catching those balls out of the backfield. We talked about how much Tom Brady liked receivers or running backs that could catch out of the backfield. Frankly, if Le'Veon Bell was smart, in my opinion, he would have gone to Tampa if they had the money and had the availability, because he would have been a perfect person for that system. He has always averaged his career average is 8.3 yards per catch out of the backfield as a wide receiver, as a running back, and his career average is 4.1 yards rushing. So, 49ers Chiefs have a better offensive line than the Jets do. So I think we're going to see a different, honestly, I think the best comparison that there may be out there is Marshawn Lynch when he got traded from the Bills to the Seahawks. I think you're going to see a Le'Veon Bell that is energized, is different, in a better system that is for him, that he'll be better to play in. And I think you're going to see that Marshawn Lynch effect, where Marshawn was considered a good running back at Buffalo, but he was not considered a great running back in Buffalo.
Yeah. The only issue I see, though, is, why would the Chiefs pick Edwards-Helaire, who is having a good season? I think he's kind of around the top 12 mark among most running back statistics. He's a rookie. I don't think they're just going to take away all his development and hand the reins completely over to Le'Veon Bell. So the question will be, how efficient can Le'Veon Bell be with, let's call it, 8 carries a game and maybe 6 to 8 targets out of the backfield.
Yeah, for sure. I don't think in any way, shape, or form, Edwards-Helaire is going to lose his carries. I think it's pretty much locked in stone that he's going to get his. And if Le'Veon is going there and thinking that he's going to get more than Helaire, I think he's kidding himself. But I do think that adds that second running back that really can. There's no I don't think there will be any drop off if Helaire isn't in the game, Edwards-Helaire isn't in the game, and Bell is in the game. I think
it helps the Chiefs offense for sure.
I definitely think that that's a great addition for them, and so it'll be interesting to see where they go. I mean, Raiders, Derek Carr's playing really well. He's the quarterback. Whenever I play Madden, he's one of the first people I always traded for, because I always have said, if I was going to start a franchise around a quarterback that wasn't Andrew Luck, it'd probably be Derek Carr. Now, that taking out Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson, but I just think Derek Carr's got what it takes to be a great quarterback in this league. I just think he hasn't been playing well, hadn't had the synergy with his team. Favorite word for people, synergy. Like to use that in business all the time, but I think he's playing really well, and I think this is going to be a fun division between the Raiders and the Chiefs. I think it's going to be a lot closer than I thought it was going to be. So it'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah. The one game kind of touched on the Dolphins and them beating up on the 49ers. The Browns over the Colts, touched on that. But the big one for me, Bills Titans, that Tuesday night. Was that our first ever Tuesday night NFL game? Maybe.
I was curious about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I really don't know. Anyway, Titans 42 over the Bills 16. The Bills looked like they're in firm command of that division. And, they kind of get out of the division there and play a good Titans team and just didn't show up. Bills, I'm not too worried about the Bills, but I think this says more about the Titans in that division where the Texans have not started off strong, and I know we kind of differed on opinions with the Colts, but I think the Titans kind of have this division already. I'd say after 5 weeks, kind of it's theirs to lose. At this point, they're 4-0. They had I believe it was a COVID bye week, which counts as their actual bye week, I think.
Yeah, it does.
It's going to get confusing with more of these COVID bye weeks, but they're 4-0. They haven't lost a game. So
let's just hold off saying that that it's their division to lose, because they still haven't played the Steelers. They still haven't played the Colts once. They still haven't played the Browns. They still haven't played the Ravens. But
we're a quarter of the way through the season and they have not lost a game. The Colts have two. So the Colts have ground to make up.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's early, but they've looked like the team to beat in that division as well. Not only with their record, but they got Derrick Henry throwing guys to the ground, making them do front flips, and Ryan Tannehill continuing his kind of last year magic as well. So
I don't
they
disagree.
Added Jadeveon Clowney. He's force on that defense. So it's going to be tough to top them in that division.
Yeah, it's definitely no easy feat for any team in that division, but I will say it would be hard for me to say that any team has locked up a division until they play that second team in their division, unless the second team in their division has
it's theirs to lose. They haven't locked it up, but they're in control right now.
I would say
they've
so.
They've got the cards.
Yeah, I would say so in that. So there were actually two other Tuesday night games. Two Tuesday night games. There was a Minnesota Vikings. There were two other Tuesday night games. So the Minnesota Vikings played the Eagles in Philadelphia on December 28th of 2010.
In the past.
In the past. It started at an unusual time though of 8:06 p.m. Eastern because a winter storm was zeroing in. Reported at the time that as much as 18 inches of snow had been expected at the stadium. But there was only 12 inches of snow. Still, 12 inches of snow. That's incredibly crazy to me. And then prior to that, the NFL had only ever played on a Tuesday night at the beginning of the 1946 season. Weather conditions, again, were the reason behind the unusual scheduling, as heavy rain forced the league to postpone the season opener between the Boston Yanks and the New York Giants.
Wow. Boston Yanks.
The Yanks were not fazed by the postponement and ran out 17-0 winner in front of the home fans at Braves Field. Crazy. Before
our time.
Well, a little before our time. That was right after World War II. But yeah, so those are the two other times in history. I'd always been interested in that as well. I had thought about that, and I just hadn't looked it up prior to this. But
it's a good stat.
And the one game the other game that I want to touch on a little bit is your team, the Seahawks. I don't know, man. They like to give you guys heart attacks over there.
They do. It's nothing new. It's really nothing new.
I mean, they won there at the end.
Yeah.
I guess my biggest question is, how much longer can Russell Wilson continue this, putting the team on his back? Because literally, I just think that's what he's doing. I mean, DK Metcalf had an amazing game, right? He had 6 catches for 93 yards and 2 TDs. Kid's a beast in his second year. He had a great rookie year. But I mean, realistically, how much longer can Russell Wilson pull these wins out of thin air?
Yeah. it's the first time that we've seen Russell really put the team on his back like this. There's been instances, he's had fourth quarter drives, he's had crazy plays, but to see him really just carry this entire team to 5 victories, because this defense is not very good right now. The Seahawks always, they kind of seem to figure things out, whether it's typically in the past, it's been poor offensive play or questionable offensive play calling when you've had Russell Wilson and, Marshawn Lynch and Doug Baldwin and those guys. But this year it's flipped, and Russell is putting the team on his back where you just feel like the defense is going to, instead of being like a bottom third defense, at some point, week 10, week 11, week 12, they're going to figure it out and just kind of be a middle of the pack defense. And you combine that with Russell putting up an MVP campaign, and you've got one of the best teams in football, which ESPN already has the Seahawks at number 1 at their power rankings, which is a little generous to me, given how bad their defense is right now. They are 5-0. They are in the toughest division in football, so you got to give them credit. Every win's going to matter in that division. Try and lock up that, top spot for the playoffs.
Well, I mean, they definitely have an interesting next 5 games. I think those are going to be the 5 games to watch. I think those are going to be the make it or break it time for the Seahawks. I think this is definitely their division to lose. I would say that this is their division to lose. They are uniquely different compared to a Titans in my opinion, because of the fact that they do have Russell Wilson. But these next 5 weeks, they're going to play the Cardinals at Cardinals this weekend, or next weekend. I'm sorry, next weekend.
This week.
Yeah, next weekend. Then they play the 49ers in Seattle. Should be hopefully a pretty easy game for them. But then they play the Bills at Buffalo, the Rams at LA, and have the Cardinals come back to the Seahawks 4 days later after they play the Rams. 4 days after they play the Rams in LA, they got to come home and play the Cardinals. That's going to be a brutal week for them.
Divisional stretch. Yeah. And then you throw in the Bills, and that's, I'll say I'm glad they're 5-0 right now, because we might be looking at like
7-2,
7-2, 6-3.
Yeah.
Just that's a brutal stretch.
Yeah. Really. I think they can do it. I think they're a good team. I definitely think when you've got Russell Wilson, it's kind of like that Aaron Rodgers effects. When you have Russell Wilson, anything's possible.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of touch base a little bit. Week 6 games that we're looking forward to watching. If you want to pull up that schedule real quick, I won't go through all of them this week, but I definitely am going to be interested in the Browns Steelers game, which is at 1 p.m. on Sunday. Obviously, I'm going to watch the Colts game. Bucks and Packers are going to be probably a pretty good game. And
that's the one I'm looking at.
And you'll probably and both those Monday night games should be interesting. You got the Cardinals and Cowboys, Chiefs and Bills. So I don't know. That'll be an interesting that's an interesting week of games. I think you've got a lot of good games there to watch this week.
Yeah, kind of one under the radar game. The Bears and the Panthers. It's a 4-1 team and a 3-2 team.
Nick Foles, come on now.
They're 4-1.
I know.
They've got Khalil Mack. They've got Dave Montgomery. Allen Robinson.
If Tom Brady knew what fourth down was, the Bears would be 3-2.
What do you know? They had the,
I know.
Was that, a 4th and 10?
I know. I'm just teasing.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of Bears fans, and just like to troll them a little bit.
That was a big win. That was a big win for him.
It'll also be interesting to see kind of another under the radar one is kind of that Falcons Vikings game. It'll be interesting to see what the Falcons do. I think didn't they fire Dan Quinn?
They did.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see kind of what they do with Raheem Morris as their head coach this week.
Yeah.
Don't know a whole lot about Raheem Morris, honestly. Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about Raheem Morris. Let's see if I can pull something up real quick.
Another one, actually, just real quick, touch on the Titans in Houston. Be interesting to see. Obviously, Titans are looking really strong, and Houston can kind of continue their turnaround post Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, that's true. That'd be great. I hope Houston can pull that one off because that's a big loss for the Titans if they do.
Yeah.
That's a huge loss, and that helps the Colts out a ton. Colts should have an easy win against the Bengals this week. If they don't win against the Bengals, let's just pack it up and get another quarterback because, it's interesting. The Indianapolis media has not been nice to Phillip Rivers this week. Let's just say that much.
Yeah.
But
I'm also looking at this. You could go to the Dolphins-Jets game at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami, get some sunshine, watch a football game for $25.
Jeez. You buying the tickets down?
I've got tickets to Miami next year, but not this weekend.
See, I mean, if you had it for this weekend, I could probably make something happen. We could just do a stream from the stadium. We could go live on my cell phone from the stadium, but but maybe next year.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do it next year. So, all right. Well, do you have anything else you kind of want to touch on tonight?
No. That wraps it up. Yep. I think. Oh, what about you? Anything else jumping out to you?
Not really. I mean, I think over this next week, there's a lot of interesting stories, especially with Le'Veon Bell, COVID-19, kind of seeing where those go and seeing how the NFL reacts to those kind of big stories. Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens this next week. I think week 6 is going to be a really great week for the NFL. And next week, we'll touch base on kind of the MLB World Series and probably week 6, kind of our takeaways. I think it's good that we've had the NFL kind of as our focus. It's kind of that main priority sport for us. I think it's probably the one we both know relatively the most. Well, MLB more than I do. But yeah, I think it's good. Yeah. So, well, guys, I think we're going to call it there. I think this is going to be the end of episode 6 of On the Ball. If you've enjoyed this, please drop a follow. Didn't look like we had much participation in the chat room tonight. Again, the reason why we are doing this live on Twitch is we want your guys' engagement. We want to engage with the chat. We want real live conversations with you during this time. So if you can stop by, if you're watching on YouTube, if you can stop by, we're generally doing this on Tuesday. You can follow us on Twitch. You'll see when we go live. You'll see the On the Ball in the title, and you'll know to drop in, ask your questions, and we'll do our best to answer those. But otherwise, we wanted to thank everyone for their support, all that you guys have done for us. As far as the support goes, we had great support this last week on the video. We're learning. We're trying to get better and trying to be better every step along the way. And yeah, I just wanted to thank you guys so much for being here tonight. Really do appreciate it. And we will see you guys next time.
Yeah.
Thanks.
See you guys next time.